There is a moment, quiet but undeniable, when you realize that chaos has been costing you more than it ever gave. A moment when your body is tired of bracing, your mind is tired of racing, and your spirit is tired of surviving on edge. It is the day you finally understand that peace is not something you must earn through exhaustion. Calm is not a reward for enduring pain. Calm is something you deserve, and the moment you see that clearly, everything begins to shift. There comes a quiet day, often after exhaustion, disappointment, or emotional overload, when something inside you finally shifts, not loudly, not dramatically, but clearly. It is the day you realize that chaos is not proof of strength, that constant tension is not a badge of honor, and that peace is not something you have to earn by suffering first. You realize that calm is not laziness, not weakness, not avoidance, it is clarity. And once this realization arrives, you can never fully return to the version of yourself that tolerated unnecessary stress just to feel worthy. This realization doesn't come when life is perfect. It usually comes when you are tired of surviving on edge, when your nervous system has been in fight or flight for too long, when you notice how often your body is tense, your thoughts are loud, and your energy is drained. Not because life is demanding, but because you have been carrying things that were never yours to hold. The day you realize you deserve calm is the day you stop normalizing emotional noise as just how life is. Calm, you begin to understand, is not the absence of responsibility. It is the presence of boundaries. It is what happens when you stop explaining yourself to people who don't listen, stop reacting to things that don't matter, and stop chasing approval from places that never offered safety. Calm is not passive, it is chosen. And choosing it requires honesty about what has been disturbing your peace for far too long. On this day you start noticing patterns. How certain conversations always leave you drained. How certain environments tighten your chest. How certain expectations keep you in a state of quiet anxiety. And instead of blaming yourself for being too sensitive, you begin to respect your awareness. You realize that your body has been signaling the truth long before your mind was ready to accept it. You also begin to see how much of your life has been shaped by urgency, fixing, proving, holding everything together. Calm feels unfamiliar at first because you've associated chaos with productivity and tension with importance, but slowly you recognize that peace doesn't slow your growth, it sharpens it. When the mind is calm, decisions become clearer. When the heart is calm, energy is preserved. When the spirit is calm, you stop leaking yourself into situations that don't deserve access to you. The day you realize you deserve calm is the day you stop asking for permission to rest, to breathe, to step back. It is the day you choose steadiness over survival. And even if nothing on the outside changes immediately, something fundamental has already shifted within you. Because once you understand that calm is your right, not a reward, you begin the quiet work of building a life that no longer feels like a constant emergency. After the realization comes the unraveling. You begin to notice how much emotional noise you've been living with. Constant opinions, expectations, subtle pressures that never fully leave your mind. This noise isn't always loud. Sometimes it sounds like obligation, guilt, or the feeling that you should be doing more, fixing more, giving more. The day you choose calm, you start questioning why you've been carrying so much of this weight without ever asking if it was truly yours. You recognize how often you've taken responsibility for other people's emotions. You've tried to keep the peace, soften the tension, and anticipate needs before they were spoken. Over time, this habit taught your nervous system to stay alert, scanning for problems even in moments meant for rest. Calm begins to arrive when you realize that not everything needs your response, and not every feeling in the room belongs to you. Letting go of emotional noise doesn't mean becoming cold or detached. It means becoming selective. You begin to pause before reacting. You stop absorbing every comment, every mood shift, every unspoken expectation. Instead of explaining yourself endlessly, you allow silence to do the work. Instead of proving your intentions, you trust them. This is not avoidance, it is emotional maturity. You also start releasing the belief that struggle equals value. You've been praised for being strong, reliable, and always available, but rarely for being at ease. Calm asks you to redefine worth, to understand that you don't have to be overwhelmed to be important, and you don't have to be exhausted to be doing enough. This shift can feel uncomfortable because it removes the familiar identity of being the one who holds everything together. As emotional noise fades, space opens. Your thoughts slow. Your breathing deepens. You notice how much clearer your intuition becomes when it's not buried under urgency. Calm allows you to hear yourself again, not the version shaped by pressure, but the one that knows when something feels right or wrong without overthinking it. Letting go is not a single decision, it's a daily practice. Each time you choose not to engage in unnecessary tension, you reclaim a piece of your peace, and slowly the world feels less demanding, not because it changed, but because you stopped carrying what was never yours to begin with. This is how calm starts to take root, not through control, but through release. The day you realize you deserve calm is also the day you begin to understand boundaries differently. Not as walls meant to shut people out, but as clarity about where you end and others begin. Boundaries stop being something you apologize for and become something you honor. You see that calm cannot exist in a life where everything has unlimited access to you. You start noticing how often you've said yes when your body was already saying no. How many times you agreed to things out of fear of disappointing someone, being misunderstood, or appearing selfish. Calm begins to grow when you give yourself permission to disappoint others instead of constantly disappointing yourself. Boundaries teach you that you don't need long explanations to justify your needs. You don't owe everyone the story behind your decisions. Sometimes I can't, or that doesn't work for me, is enough. The more you respect your own limits, the less you feel the urge to over-justify them. Self-respect quietly replaces people-pleasing. You stop measuring your worth by how much you give or how much you tolerate. You realize that calm isn't created by being liked. It's created by being aligned. And alignment often requires saying no to things that once felt familiar, even if they cost you approval. As boundaries strengthen, relationships shift. Some deepen, some fade, some reveal themselves for what they truly were. Connections built on access rather than mutual respect. This can feel unsettling at first, but it also brings relief. Calm grows when your energy is no longer spread thin, trying to maintain dynamics that were never balanced. Boundaries don't make life smaller, they make it quieter. And in that quiet, you begin to feel safer within yourself. You no longer brace for impact in every interaction. You move through your days with steadiness instead of anticipation. This is the calm that comes from self-respect, the kind that doesn't need to be explained, defended, or announced. It simply exists. As calm becomes a priority, you begin to practice detachment. Not from life, but from unnecessary emotional entanglement. You learn that you can care without carrying, listen without absorbing, and be present without becoming overwhelmed. Detachment is not indifference. It is balance. It allows you to remain steady even when things around you are uncertain or intense. You notice how much energy you once lost reacting to everything, messages, opinions, delays, misunderstandings. Calm grows when you realize that not every trigger requires a response. Pausing becomes a form of self-protection. In that pause, you regain control over your emotions instead of handing it away to every external event. Emotional regulation becomes less about suppression and more about awareness. You stop judging your emotions as good or bad and start observing them as signals. This shift creates space between feeling and reacting. Instead of being pulled into emotional spirals, you learn to let emotions rise and pass without building a story around them. With detachment, your nervous system begins to settle. You no longer live in constant anticipation of what might go wrong or who might be upset. Your body starts to trust the present moment. Calm isn't something you force. It emerges naturally when your system no longer feels under threat. You also realize that emotional peace doesn't require control over others. It requires trust in yourself. Trust that you can handle discomfort, disappointment, or change without collapsing. This trust reduces fear, and fear no longer dictates your reactions. Calm becomes your default, not because life is easy, but because you are grounded. Detachment gives you the freedom to choose your responses instead of being driven by impulse. You begin to move through situations with quiet confidence, knowing that your peace doesn't depend on perfect conditions. And in this steadiness, you feel a deep sense of calm that is no longer fragile. It is rooted. As calm settles in, your life begins to simplify, not because you force it to, but because clarity naturally removes excess. You start to notice what drains you and what restores you. You become less interested in constant stimulation and more drawn to steadiness. Slowing down no longer feels like falling behind. It feels like coming home to yourself. You realize how much of your stress came from rushing through conversations, decisions, even rest. Calm invites you to move at a pace that allows you to breathe fully, listen carefully, and choose intentionally. You stop multitasking your life. You do fewer things, but you do them with presence. This shift alone begins to soften your days. Simplicity shows you that peace doesn't come from having more, but from needing less. Fewer expectations, fewer obligations, fewer emotional negotiations. You become more selective with your time and energy, not out of selfishness, but out of self-respect. Calm grows when your life is no longer cluttered with what doesn't truly matter. You also begin to enjoy quiet moments without feeling the need to fill them. Silence stops feeling uncomfortable and starts feeling nourishing. You allow pauses in conversations, space in your schedule, and stillness in your evenings. These moments recharge you in ways constant activity never could. Slowing down helps you reconnect with your intuition. When life is quieter, you can hear your inner guidance more clearly. Decisions become simpler because they're no longer rushed by fear or urgency. Calm allows you to trust your timing, knowing